Christianity didn't just happen. Constantine created it, basically.
No, he didn't. That's
well,
a
I mean,
huge myth.
as a religion, it was a bunch of people that believed Jesus for sure, but Jesus wasn't trying to get them to start a religion. He just said what he believed.
He said, upon this rock I build my church in Matthew 16. He was definitely trying to start
a church. He was a Jew. I mean, he was definitely a Jew, and maybe he was trying to reform Judaism, but he wasn't trying to create a religion. He was trying to teach people and be like, modernize Judaism and explain like, well, maybe you can, sow two types of crops in one garden and it'll be all right. I don't know if he actually said that, but like he was taking the Old Testament and like filling in the gaps for modern age with new technology and being like, here's a lot of it.
I mean, he definitely was a reformer, but he was definitely calling all sorts of people to him. I mean, if you go to Matthew 28, he talks about going and preaching to the Gentiles and doing this kind of stuff. Then we see it play out in Acts. I mean, the idea that Constantine created Christianity is a huge modern myth. Peter J. Leithart wrote about this in his book, Defending Constantine. He had nothing to do with the Bible. He had nothing to do with doctrine. In fact, oftentimes he just sort of signed off on things the bishops came to in their conclusions. It's been a huge, huge idea within the past couple hundred years to sort of just blame everything on Constantine.
I think if Constantine had wanted to stomp out Christianity, he probably could have, but he chose to elevate it to the national level. Whereas, like, the religions, they aren't really emergent. I mean, they kind of are. I know what you're saying. Like human psychology, you can't just be like, now you're going to be a religion, but you kind of can if you control the narrative machine. And so, without the authoritarian alteration of the scene, I don't know. I mean, other than just becoming an obsessive prophet myself and just spouting it and alienating myself and then getting slaughtered by the modern control structure like Jesus did, like, and then people in 100 years will start to create a religion out of me. Like, I don't see a path and be like, please, can we do it, guys? Come on, let's all come together and create that doesn't seem to be the way.
To your point, Christianity for the first 1,500 years was really not a religion of freedom. It was a religion of repressive ideas. Even in the book of Acts, chapter 19, we see the first book burnings. Under Athanasius, there were book burnings. Under Constantine, there were book burnings. Under Eusebius and John Chrysostom, all throughout Christian history,
what does that mean?
They were burning books that they deemed heretical. Like any books. Any books that they deemed heretical, they were burning them.
So the issue we need to understand, because book burning in and of itself it's a Godwin's law. It's like the Nazis burned books. The question is, what books were being burned and why?
Well, they list them. In fact, there's a really good book on this. Let me pull it up for you, where they go through Christian history. In fact, in late antiquity, it's called
and while you're doing
Christianity, Book Burning, and Censorship in Late Antiquity by Dirk Roman. And in fact, some of those book burnings are even recorded in this firsthand right here, edicts during Constantine's reign and just after Constantine reigns, where they say, you go out and collect these books and burn them. A lot of them are philosophical works by the Greeks. A lot of them are just heretical books by other Christians. The idea of freedom of thought within Christianity is a modern concept.
And why is it a modern concept now, though? I mean, it didn't just come out of nowhere.
People are getting crushed by it. When a religion crushes you for 1,500 years, eventually you're like, hey, maybe we shouldn't be doing this. The same thing with Islam. If Islam continues on the path that it's going right now, eventually their own adherents will rebel against them. They can't right now because they'll get killed.
That's not happening. The revivalist movements in Islam are Salafi, and they're trying to go back to what Muhammad, and they're actually more authoritarian. They're actually far worse than a lot of regular Muslim type folk are, because they're trying to go back. The question we need to ask is, yes, Christians did horrible things, but if we're going on what Tom Holland does in his book Dominion, there were definitely revivalist movements. He talks about Christianity being like a city underneath an earthquake line. What are those things called?
Fault line?
Fault line, yeah. He's like, yeah, they build these structures, but then oftentimes within Christianity, revivalist movements shake things up and start things over. So he talks about this throughout his book. They did horrible things to the Cathars. Revivalists come along and they start to say, no, we need to get back to the teachings of Jesus. And you're saying 1,500 years. Actually, again, Brian Tierney, for example, in his book, The Idea of Natural Nature, notes this starts far earlier, and it's moving through the medieval period, this idea of developing natural rights, freedom of religion, freedom of thought. It's coming up. It's sort of developing. And that's why Tom Holland says Christianity was like a depth charge. It took a while for that charge to go off and start spreading. People were fighting it as I was doing it, but revivalist movement, Christianity had built in this structure of revivalism.
Was it the printing press?
Printing press helped a lot.
Because the internet is kind of like another staging ground for a new religion. And I think there's a lot of cultures vying for that control right now. I mean, I see a blending of science and God, like for sure. There's something like we've developed technology that can witness some fluctuations in, like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, the cosmic microwave background radiation is no joke. That is not a coincidence. That it looks like a neural net in the brain, like a bunch of neurons arcing through planetoids and star systems where you see these bright dots, which are like neurons, and then they kind of fan out into what look like wisps. I mean, we should, at some point, pull it up and look at it and just stare at it and realize what you're looking into.
Are you guys familiar with the Laborum Prohibitorum?
Negative.
It's an official list of banned books that started in a medieval period that didn't get abolished until 1966 under Pope John. And guess what? There's a lot of science in there. Nicholas Copernicus, Johannes Kepler, René Descartes, Lafont, Montesquieu, Voltaire, Rousseau, Victor Hugo, even novelists like John Milton, Spinoza's in there, John Locke's in there, David Hume's in there. This went on until the modern age. My dad was alive when they finally abolished this list of banned books.
This is my problem with organized religion is that if they
I got a question. He made a point I got to address. What is it? What is it like? Who banned them and where are they banned?
This is an official banning by the Catholic Church that started in the medieval period.
Banned from where?
From anyone who is found in possession of them.
So in 1960,
it started as part of the Inquisitions.
So in 1950, what would happen if you had a book?
Well, obviously, in the 1950s in the USA, they wouldn't have been able to do anything to you other than excommunicate to you. They can excommunicate you, yeah, but in medieval Europe,
they were more like church guidance on like, hey, this is a bad book.
It's basically it. There's an atheist named Tim O'Neill, runs for History for Atheists. He's addressed a lot of this. These books were not being banned. They're put on like a special list as if like, hey, we need more teachings on this kind of thing. So, for example, Copernicus gets put on there, but it says, once there's corrections to certain things he says, then it can be removed, and it is.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Culture War podcast. We're live every Friday, 10 a.m. to noon, so subscribe and come hang out.